This is Scott from My Life's Reward. I'm going to show you how to do some trip planning using Gaia. Stay tuned. In my approach to trip planning, my first step is to do a rough outline of the trip. You can use anything. You can use pen and paper. You can use whatever you want, a word processor. I happen to use Microsoft's OneNote. I'm not a big Microsoft fan, but I do have access to this. If you don't have access to something like this and you do want to do it electronically, so you can share it across maybe some different devices. There's something called Evernote that I used to use a while back, and there's a free version of it, and there are paid versions that offer more functionality. And you can see here on the screen that the free version is still available, and it would be perfectly fine for doing something like this. And then if you want to start getting a little more into things and going across multiple devices, more than two, then you might go into one of these other plans. But I would think that most people would be fine just with the free version for this kind of thing. And it would take these notes and you could put these across multiple devices. So here we're going to go back into OneNote, and I'm going to start a new OneNote page. And the first thing that I do is I title it. Usually I'd put a year and a month and the activity that I'm trying to do. Since this is a video, I'm just labeling it so I can keep track of that. And then I start outlining, and I start answering the questions: who, what, when, why, where, how. And I just start to answer those questions just so that I don't forget the details of what we're trying to do, and it just helps with the planning. So then the what is, it's an event. It's going to be ATV camping in this particular case. It's going to be a trip in early spring of this year. We're going to do about mid-April. Maybe in this case we'll do something like April 15th, which that'll be under the when, so I'll fill that in when that comes. And then the who, the participants, so I'm going to answer that question, and I just put the names in there of the people that are going to be involved in this trip. So then I'll scrub that out because I've answered that piece. And the when part is the dates of when we're going to do this. Let's say we're going to do it mid-April. Let's say Friday, April 15th. And the next question we're going to ask is why are we going? What's triggering it? And we just all happen to have the same ability to take time off during that time. And the where part, location, and we'll identify, where are we going to take this trip? So I'll spell it right out. And how are we going to go about doing this? How could be, well, we want to do an overland, or we want a trailer to the location and have a central location, and then go to the different trail systems. And that's what we're going to be doing here. Is we're going to try to pick a central location and then either ride or trailer to these other nearby locations, and then just describing the vehicle arrangements and what vehicles we're taking, trailers. And I also get into a little bit here of how we're doing the sleeping arrangements. We're going to go through and clean these entries up since we answered all the questions, and then we're going to lay out the days and the times of when things will happen. So that's what we're going to do next, and I'll cut back after I've completed that. So we're still working on making some entries here. As you can see, I've kind of broken down the times here, and where we're doing some routes, I've assigned some colors to help with the mapping that we're going to be doing here in just a little while. So just refining things, but that's what things look like there. There's a few questions that still need to be answered. Now we're going to go on to our mapping. At this point, we've done a rough outline of the trip. That's number one. We're going to cross that off our list. We're going to now start researching the options, and that's next. So looking in here in Gaia GPS, just looking over the folder structure, it looks like I've got all my years. I got a sort folder, but I don't have a 2022 folder. So this is the first event that I'm planning for 2022. Just have another 2022 folder. I've got some other odds and ends that I got to clean up here. But so the next thing to do is to create a new item, create a folder in Gaia GPS, and we're going to call it 2022. And this 2022 folder will be the one that I use throughout this whole calendar year. So knowing that we wanted to stay at Ambrose Lake Campground, I did a search in the search box there for Ambrose Lake Campground, found it, zoomed in on it in Gaia, and now we're going to put a waypoint there. So we'll have a waypoint in our folder library in Gaia to turn on and off via a folder. So with the waypoint saved, and we changed the symbol there from a normal waypoint marker to a tent, just showing that it's our campsite. We're going to manage the folder area that it's going to be stored in. So we're going to take this and just select the radio button here, and then go up to the file folder and move that to the 2022 folder. And that's how we do that. It's just keeping things tidy for us here. And again, eventually I'm going to go in the 2022 folder and make an actual project folder for this particular trip. Here we're just toggling on and off the folder to show you that you can make it go away or come back. Sometimes you have to do that more than once in order for it to actually work. Usually 2 times does it if it's something new. For step number 2 in research, I like to use Google Maps, and then I also like to use the DNR website with all the trails. An easy way to get there is go to youtube.com/c/mylifereward, and then look where I'm pointing here, and I'll zoom in on that with a circle and click that, and that map will come right up. So I'm going to have 3 maps in tabs ready to go. This DNR website is extremely helpful, shows all the trails in Michigan, and then if you click on those trails, you can actually download the GPX files and bring them right into Gaia. And we're going to do that a few times just to show you how to do that, and it makes building the routes very fast. Using the Google Maps, I'm just kind of getting my bearings, looking at the St. Helen area. I'm going to kind of move around the map here and just kind of get some landmarks in my head. There's Mile. So getting a placement of that, because I know Bull Gap is close to that. And then looking for the Alcona Trail. I know that's close by the Hoist Lake area in 72. And I'm just identifying those landmarks and just kind of getting my bearings here, pointing out these landmarks here. Okay, so all right, that looks good. Now I'm going to go over to the DNR system, and I'm going to change the map here at some point so it shows the roads. And I'm just going to look at the trail systems here and see how can I maybe move from the St. Helen area, from our Ambrose Lake Campground area. So we're just kind of getting our bearings here. We found the St. Helen area. And then now we're looking for Mile. A little hard to find in this map. I'm seeing there's a Mile trail, but there's got to be a better way to do this and trying to hunt around here. So now I'm going to change the map layer. and it should reveal a little nicer the map for that reveals the city locations. So I'm going to select the streets option here. I think that gives me the best visibility for looking at roads and cities, towns. So we're just going to kind of move around here until we can locate Mayo. Kind of got to know where Mayo is in order to get a bearing on where Bull Gap is. Yep, so I can see Mayo there. And I know Bull Gap is off to the south and the east. And the kind of the parking symbols give that away. And I'm seeing a little blue area there. That's Bull Gap. I just happen to know that. And so this is a potential destination. So just kind of still getting my bearings. We're going to look around here a little bit. Look at the Alcona area and just follow that along. We're going to see some things we recognize. 72 is one of those landmarks, and we see where the trail is relative to 72. Not really seeing the Hoist Lake area, but I get an idea where it's at there. So that's Alcona, and it looks like maybe we could go to Bull Gap and do an in-out. Not only do Bull Gap, but then go traverse over to the Alcona ORV trail and go all the way to the end and come back. That might be a nice ride for us. So kind of looking at that. So taking a look at the St. Helen Motorsport area, pointing to that there. Look at Mayo. Okay. Bull Gap was right there. And then looking at Alcona, and there's the trail system that we would use potentially to go there. Zooming in on the Ambrose area as to where we would stay. Looking to see, does a trail come close by there? And it does. So we could potentially use it to go south or north if we didn't want a trailer. Don't know how realistic that is. So now I'm moving over to the Google map. I want to do some searches here to see if I can find some different campgrounds, because maybe there's campgrounds other than what I knew was the Ambrose campground that might be better. There's campgrounds all over. I was looking at the USDA campgrounds, the federal campgrounds, then there's state campgrounds. It's really too bad you can't just type in campgrounds and see them all, but they all have to be a little different. So you can see that there's some candidates here, and Ambrose seems like it would be one that would work for us. And so we're going to go to it, go to the link and see, does Ambrose Campground support quads, ATV riding? So I'm going to scroll down and look at the activity symbols below. And I'm going to make a leap assumption that because the ATV symbol is there, that I'm hoping you can actually drive it into the campground. Sometimes you can't, so you got to be careful of that. Here, I'm just going to look it up in the table to see what the costs are and see if there's anything else here and if it's open or not. So just zooming it up so you can see it a little better. There's Ambrose Lake State Forest Campground, second line. It's open all year. All right, that's good. Going to scroll over a little bit more. And we're just going to look and see what the pricing is. It was $15 back in November, before November 1st, 2021. So I'm going to have to plan on $20 a night for that as far as for our budget. And then there's some other columns there that may or may not be of interest depending on what you're trying to do. So now we know that information. Now I'm going to switch over to Gaia, and we're going to get our bearings here. We're going to lay this map out in the zoom so that we can see St. Helen and Mayo, our potential campsite, And we might even be able to fit out the Alcona Trail area into this as far as the general location. So just manipulating things. There's St. Helen from our potential campsite. That looks pretty doable from a standpoint of actually driving there with the ATVs. And I'm seeing here that there is an actual trail system that goes from the campground to St. Helen. And those are one of those things you want to see in these maps. Now I want to click on this map, and what I want to do is I want to download the GPX file. Because what I want to do is I want to bring that in to Gaia. So the first part here is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and I want to kind of go down the list into the Lower Peninsula and find that trail, which is right here, Ambrose Lake, however you say it, Ambrosia Lake, Ogama Hills. And we're going to right click on that. We see that it's a GPX file, and we're going to save that. So now we have that GPX file, and it's ready to go into Gaia. Now we're going to switch back to Gaia. We're going to position our map, zoom it out so we can see where the trail will come in. We're going to hit the click on the import, select the file, and go grab it where we stored it. Now when you do this part right here, it's in a preliminary stage. It's just showing this is what it looks like. You have to actually go down and save that. It might be 1 item, it might be 2, it might be 10. Now we have this route in, and it looks to be most of the distance, a good majority of it, but there's some missing pieces. So we've kind of got down more to the southern part of where St. Helen is, and now we got to work our way over to the west. So I'm going to take a look at the DNR map and see, what's going on there. So there must be some other trails that this other one hooks up to, and there are. And so I'm going to kind of look at this and say, what's the best route or the best trail? And we're going to do this one next. You got to kind of click it just right. You got to kind of get it just in the right spot here. We'll get there. There we go. And then we're going to do that GPX file. We're going to go find it. You got to remember the name. And we're looking for one trail to another. It's a kind of a link up. So it's the Ogama Hills to St. Helen Trail map. So then we're going to go over to the right, and we're going to right click on that, save link as, be a GPX file, and away we go. And we just keep doing this, rinse and repeat until you get everything. Now I'm going to skip ahead and show you what happens when you do all of them. And there's, I think, about 5 or 10. Well, there's several trails here in order to make this work. So this is what it looks like after all of the files have been imported. Now I just need to figure out what's the best route to go from the campground to St. Helen Trail. What's going to be either the most interesting, most adventurous, or shortest route, depending on what you're trying to do. And so I'm just trying to look at that, and I'm going to adjust the colors of all of these routes and trails so that they match up with the color that I put in the trip itinerary, which was red. Before we do that, we do need to do some house cleaning here and take these newly imported files and put them in the right places to keep things straight. So I'm going to select all of these imported trails and move them in the 2022 folder. So then I just select that folder and move them there, and things are nice and tidy now. So back to our list, we did the research, the options, where we're going to go, where we're going to camp. So let's cross that off. And then let's put together the plan. So now we're going to select these trails. I selected the line there, the route, and I'm going to edit it. And what I want to do is change the color from purple to red. And then I'm going to do that with all the other trails. As I zoom out here, I'll pick the next one that we need to go to and pick that one. So looking over the different routes here and trying to figure out where's the best way to go. And it looks like straight ahead here on this purple. So I'm going to change this one to red by doing the same thing I did to the longer route. So I'll click it, edit, change it to red. So I'll go through and do this for the rest of them and come back and show you what I've completed. So all the routes have been changed to the red color. Now what I'm going to do is kind of take a little bit closer look at them and get the distances, the different mileages of each, so I can add them up. So I'm just looking at each one. Now some of these are going to have to ballpark because, like in the middle there, you see that loop. I'm not going to do that whole loop there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep working my way over that little circle, but we're not going to go on the whole circle. We're just going to maybe do a third of the circle or a quarter of it or whatever. So I'll have to ballpark that a little bit. So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'll go back to the trip itinerary and put the miles in there. Now that I've gathered all of the distances, I'm going to go into the itinerary, find my route I wanted to make red there, which I did, and I'm just going to put the mileage information in there. I'll do a little bit differently because this is going to be kind of sort of an in out, so it's going to be 22 from the campground to St. Helen, 22 back, and then plus whatever we ride in the St. Helen area. So it's going to be a minimum of 44-mile day, plus whatever we feel like riding around in that play areas, those different trails and things. So I expect by the time the day is done, it's going to be right around 70 to 80 miles of riding, thereabouts. So I went through and pulled in all of the trails for the Alcona Bull Gap area and looked at those routes and trails and took down the mileage, added them up, and they came out to about 35 miles, and it'll be 35 miles in and 35 miles out for about right around 70 miles. However, there is a little section that bridges the Bull Gap trail area with the Alcona Trail that we're going to manually put in just to kind of do a refresher on doing something like that. So, and also, if you saw there that I highlighted the orange, we don't have the trails color coded to the orange yet, so I'm going to do that very quickly here. After doing all the colors, I have this little section trail that if I turn it orange, it'll go way up. So here I'm just going to do a route, a custom route. So we'll choose route, and then we'll just start clicking, following this blue line. Being that that was the route that was imported, we'll just kind of follow that and use that as a guide. So we're going to go through and click all these different points until we bridge that gap. And all I'm doing is pressing down on the mouse and panning down there. So that's my intercept right there where it goes to the Alcona. And now all I have to do is it's an untitled route. So I want to name it. Looks like it's just under a mile. So I'm going to adjust in the itinerary that mile going there and that mile coming back. So instead of it being 70 miles, it'll be right around 71.5 to 72 miles. So just to look things over here, started for the Bull Gap there, everything's orange going over, and we're going to just stretch that whole span for the Alcona and go right to the very end of the trail. And we did that little bridge there, and we're good to go. Don't get confused with that dark orange on top. That's not part of it. I probably should have changed that. But now we want to look at, well, hey, what if we wanted to go over from the trailhead over to McKinley, which is over in the upper right part there. There's a restaurant there. I don't think there's a gas station, but maybe we want to do that. Or maybe we want to use this blue trail to go there, but let's just say we want to make a custom route. If you notice the other route that I made, you had to do a point-to-point click and it didn't follow any route because there wasn't anything mapped to do that other than the route that was imported, which wasn't a route that it could find and adjust. I'm going to show you here what happens when you actually have a road system or a trail system that's actually part of the mapping data. And you just, when you start clicking, because we got a start point from there, it follows all the different turns. It self-adjusts. Now this doesn't happen on rivers. If I were doing a paddling setup, this would never happen on a river. You got to do point to point on a river. But here, when you have road data, it actually knows and it follows that from point to point, and it makes those adjustments. So I'm just going to find the shortest route into McKinley. Looks like this is it. It automatically laid that route in there. And I'm just going to go to the center of McKinley. This other one looked better, so I'm going to click that. And now we have a route that was pretty easy to make with maybe 6 points. And it covered quite a large distance, about 7 miles. So that's how that works. And what I'll do here is I'll just label that route so I can keep track of it. Bull Gap Trailhead to McKinley. And then we'll have that route in case we want to use it. We can look that up and see how far it is and follow that if we wanted to. Now I want to do some cleanup here, so we're going to go into our saved items area, and we're going to move these new items into the 2022 folder. I'm not seeing the 2022 folder listed here, so I got to go to more folders and select that. As I'm inside this 2022 folder now, I want to make a new folder that is going to hold this project, this event, because I'm going to have so many more in the year 2022. So I don't want to put a year because I already got the year identified. I was just used to doing that, so I mistyped. But spring ATV trip, it's already in the 2022 folder, so I know what year it is. I'll save that. And then I'm going to take all of these objects that are sitting in the 2022 folder, and I'm going to select the radio buttons and move those all into the spring ATV trip folder up top there. And I'll go to the folder. And now everything's in that folder and it's nice and neat. And if we look at the eye vision, the visible, the eyeball there, we can turn this stuff on and off just by selecting that. So I'm going to kind of show you everything that we've done so far. It's all visible on the map. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to turn it off. Now it might take a couple times to get all these. Just switch it off a couple of times and it'll go off the next time. It's just a little glitch, I think, on the web version. So, and that's how you do that. This is the near completed itinerary for the travel plans here. We have a few things to work out with, maybe day 1 there. And then day 2, we do have things mapped out pretty good for where we're going, the distances. Haven't got dinner plans worked out yet, but we can do that. Day 3 looks like it's worked out pretty well. Still got to work on dinner plans there. So this is a good representation on how I go about doing trip planning with using an itinerary or a notepad or whatever, and some mapping software, Gaia, Google, and the DNR trail system map that I showed you. So we put together the plan so we can cross that off of our list here. And now the thing that's left is we need to collaborate with trip partners and then refine and finalize the plan, which that's separate and away from all of this. Involves conversations and looking over the materials and making whatever adjustments. So, And that's the way that we trip plan using all these different tools. Hey, I want to thank you for stopping by the channel and checking this video out. It's getting to be a long winter, cold in Michigan. I want to get outside myself, get some new footage, get some different kinds of videos on here, but just biding my time in the meantime and taking care of some of the things that have been requested. So hang in there, and looking forward to doing some trips here in the next few months, and we'll get back to some live action. So anyway, until next week, take care. Thank you.